morning to you, Facebook. I hope you have your coffee. For me, it is green tea. And I am so excited this morning to bring on Amir Dorn. Amir is actually, him and his wife are our dear family friends. Amir has been in real estate investing for 13 years now. He owns 30 Airbnb properties. He is one of the smartest people I know. So with no further ado, my good friend Amir. Oh, he just went away. Okay, well, you got me for a minute while I see what is going on. We were talking before we popped on, and it's crazy right now how people have completely different opinions, and he is, oh, here he goes. People from all sides have completely different opinions of what's going on in the market. And I am excited to hear Amir share with you Amir's point of view, because he's boots on the ground. He's investing. And when you're investing and you're putting your money where your mouth is, that is going to be the best opinion to get, in my personal opinion. Good morning, Amir. You made it.
Good morning. I made it. I just disconnected and reconnected in a perfect time. So I'm happy to be here. How are you, Jen?
I am good. And I love that you are actually at Airbnb right now. Tell me about that property you're at.
This is a beautiful 5-bedroom, 4-bath on an acre lot. You can check it out. We're going to put the link right below this conversation. So you can check it out. It's an acre lot. It's obviously vacant, but we get to use it to talk to you.
Yeah, and it comes in handy when you have, I know you have family in town, and just nice to be able to escape to your little Airbnb. And it's sunny out, and I heard the birds chirping as soon as you popped on.
Gorgeous day. The lemon tree is full of flowers. We are smelling the lemon blossoms. So if I sneeze,
I am not sure what is happening here. I don't know about anyone else using Zoom. I've used Zoom for years, and I have felt that since we have gone into this technology where everybody's using it, that there has been a little bit more kinks and people getting popped off. So I am sending him a little text here. Sorry, guys. It's happening. What's happening when you go live? You are live, so there's no going back and rewinding. I will tell you a little bit about some of our conversations leading up today while Amir pops back in. And I don't know if it's, here we go. You're not with me this morning?
Sorry.
So Amir, sorry. Go ahead and start. I know that you were talking about your property there. Mm-hmm. So you now tell us a little bit about your background, and do you have your coffee or your tea?
I have my coffee right in front of me. Cheers.
Oh, cheers. So tell us a little bit about your background. You know, I know it's been 13 years. You've owned rental properties. You've been acquiring them over the years, and you came from a civil engineering background. But I'm going to let you tell your story.
Thank you. So at young age, I knew I wanted to go to property development ownership. So part of civil engineering was going to that background. My first job when I got my degree was building high-risers in downtown LA. I was an owner representative building these. So I was in charge of getting the loan, getting the property, getting the contractor. My next job was getting commercial development in Arizona. I couldn't handle LA traffic.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's horrible. I love it in Arizona. Best place in the world, in my opinion. So I moved over here. I did commercial development as the civil engineering part of it. I did W Hotel. I did Scottsdale Quarter, did Sheraton Hotel. I did a lot of big projects with the aim of real estate in mind. I bought my first property in 2007. It wasn't a residential 1-bedroom. It was a 10-plex.
Oh, wow.
So took my civil income, my down payment that I had saved. I hadn't bought a car yet, except my college car. I hadn't bought a house yet. I bought a 10-plex at the height of the market.
Wow.
This is back in the day that they gave a young guy a loan with no experience running a multi-complex. I mean, I was in development, but what did I know about running something like this? Very fortunate to be able to get that mortgage right after I got it. The market crashed. By the way, we're going to put the link for that multi-complex. They're all Airbnb on the web, so you guys can see it. The market crashed. Today, I think I'm fortunate that we got that loan, that the market was good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was a bad thing that I bought it.
Mm-hmm.
I see the value of my wealth in real estate, not in dollars. So I think more real estate I have, more wealthier I am. This is nature I'm getting. Dollar is man-made. So tomorrow somebody can produce a lot more and I can become less wealthy or more wealthy. But land and houses is way more real to me personally than dollar is.
I love that. So even though you had bought it, and I know the prices went down, but the prices also came back up, and you've owned it the entire time they went down and up, but it didn't seem to faze you because you had a return coming in.
No, I didn't have it. I had to hustle. The market crashed, and people didn't like one bedrooms anymore because they could get an entire house and all move together. So I had a hard time getting occupancy. A lender wanted to foreclose on me. There was no commercial high rises going up. I started flipping houses, so I didn't have the W-2 income. And I had about 50-60% occupancy, and these are really low rent occupancy, $500-600 a month.
That's like, I remember those days.
Worst renters. So they would come to me and they're like, we want to foreclose on you. You don't have W income. I went and got a job at restaurants so I can show income, and I was serving table and writing how much more money income I was making in tips so I can carry this property and refinance it because commercial loans become due every 4 or 5 years. So it had to come due. But to me, the opportunity to get a 10-plex wasn't there a year later. So I might have been able to get a quarter of a price, but who would have given me the loan to get a quarter of a price? Okay. So I came out ahead. I had to go through some hardship, but now, well, not now, but 2 weeks ago, the property was worth 3 times what I had paid for it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I know you started out, obviously short-term rentals weren't a big thing in 2007.
No.
When did that come into play?
So in my mind, I want to carry the properties and I want to make them more and more. What short-term, the problem with the long-term rentals we had it was hard to keep him really nice. If somebody comes in and rents a small 1-bedroom from you for 2 years, when they leave, it's beat up. So somebody introduced me with this idea of short-term rental. And when we first looked at it, it wasn't to us the money making, and still not to us the money making. It was how do we carry these and make them nicer and better? So the properties I bought were always in the best areas of town, and there were the worst properties in that areas. And my idea has always been to slowly making them better and better. And that Airbnb model came in really good with that. So about 6 years ago, we decided to switch. And at that point, we had gone from the 10-plex to a few other properties, but we decided to switch one of the units in the 10-plex from long-term rental to an Airbnb, just one. And then we slowly that one came to be what it is today.
Okay. Awesome. So now tell me, 30 properties, you had one in '07. Can you kind of talk, share with us your story of like how, when you started to acquire those and like the areas? I know you said good areas, but I know we've talked over the years about different areas that you've been interested in.
Yeah, so I think the market always undervalues something, and the market has good reasons for undervaluing something. So the multi-complex that I bought, right after I bought it, it got very undervalued because I couldn't get my units filled up. Others couldn't get them filled up. So that whole area of Osborne and 68 Street crashed. So those properties went from 250 to about 70, 80,000 for a fourplex. Then they slowly became 120,000, 150,000. 2 weeks ago, I saw a fourplex selling for 850,000. So at the point that there were 150, 200, if somebody had a lot of cash and understood why these are so undervalued, they could have invested more and more on that. A plug for me, I sold more. I represented more buyer within a 2-3 year period that those fourplexes were low than anyone else in that area. We were selling those quite a bit because I felt like they were low. And our market does that to many things. Condos used to be very low. Now they came up really high. So I look at those trends in the market, what is undervalued and what is overvalued, and I make those investments based on that. For instance, today I would not recommend buying a multi-complex. I think those fourplex, duplexes were in a balloon, and they're going to have the hardest time with the rent, people not being able to pay rent. And the sector of the society that is most going to be affected are going to be the renters who were working at restaurants, who were working other jobs, service jobs.
So there's opportunity right now that you think the prices will come down for fourplexes and multifamily?
Correct. I think for those things, the prices will come down. Now, the question is, how much will they come down? Would they become an opportunity? Obviously, at 800, they were not an opportunity. At 750, are they an opportunity?
Yeah. Well, can you share with me when you say opportunity, because I imagine that when you went to convert your first long-term to short-term rental, you were looking at the returns. Like, I know I'm not going to have vacancy. I'll have a 1 to 2 year tenant. Obviously, there could be evictions. They don't pay rent, but versus I'm going to have more vacancy, but I'm going to get a much higher rent. Like, what do those numbers look like?
I don't like vacant houses, Jen. I can't. Part of our business model is not to have vacancy. So I have always said, undercut the market until our Airbnbs are full.
Okay.
A vacant house to me is very dangerous. There's water damage. There's electrical stuff against stuff. The water damage part is the one I hate the most. But there's theft with this Corona thing in 2007, 8, 9. If you remember, we had a lot more theft going on, flipping houses. Yep. A lot of my vacant houses got, we would put brand new appliances in there, and then the brand new appliances would disappear. That happened to us twice during that time. So there's many reasons. God, the worst one was a client of ours. They stole the copper pipes and they didn't turn off the water. So the next day when we came, there was so much water damage. So I don't like keeping my houses vacant. Our business model has always been lower the price until rent. So this time that there's no renters in this market is very concerning to me. At that, having a lot of vacant houses, we do drives and we check them every day.
So now it's like, obviously it's not a fun time to own an Airbnb when you have just had your vacancies change overnight and you have to drive by the properties and make sure nothing's happening. But you are also not selling them, right? You're not converting them back to long-term rentals.
No, we are not selling them. We are holding on. We think we can get to the other side of this, but we are prepared for something like this. We were looking at the outline. We were thinking something, not this particular one, but we knew by looking at 2007. I went to Las Vegas in 2007 when the crash happened. I have a family members living there, and I didn't see anyone in this strip. So I knew someday this vacancies are going to happen. What we did about a few months ago, a month ago, we changed a lot of them monthly rental. So a lot of them are already had left the Airbnb sphere. The ones that are getting rented, but we believe in a few months it's going to get better. But the market was saturated a little bit to begin with, started showing signs of saturation in a way that before, if I didn't have a weekend rented, I didn't have to lower the price. I'm talking about January, February, not right now. It would have rented in January, February. Now to this market, I felt like I had to compete with prices a little bit more than usual in this year than usual. So we had a perfect storm, more houses in the market usual. Airbnb's data, I think, was showing much higher houses in Airbnb. And on top of it, with this Corona, I think just like rest, a lot of Airbnbs just can't make it.
Yeah. And now you've been established for longer and it really became popular within the last few years. We too saw that lower end of the Airbnb to get saturated, but not as much on the higher end on the market for inventory. And we've seen those lower end homes actually make their way either to the long-term rental market or they're selling.
Yeah, funny enough, I think that luxury market of the Airbnb in PV area and the big houses, it might be a little bit saturated. But when you go outskirt of Scottsdale, a little bit high north, yeah, there's definitely not enough of it. I felt like in January, February when I was looking at that area. So do you see that same thing?
Yeah, we've seen the same thing. Every year it seems to be, we get inquiries all the time. Do you have this? Do you have anything available for rent short, for the month of January, February, or for the month of February, or for 2 weeks? And where it's always just very slim pickings of what's left.
Yeah. And to that point, Jen, is so regional, and I might as well bring it up now. I see Airbnb like a restaurant business way more than real estate and rental business. For me, I'm in real estate business. It's a tool for me to carry my properties better and be able to carry more properties. But for how you run an Airbnb, for rental, you put it in a market that's it. You rent it once, and it's I call rental a low variance business where everyone who's renting brings in same amount of money. The difference between money making is low variance. Where Airbnb and doing real estate, what we did and what I did and what you do is a high variance business. It's like restaurant business. It's not every restaurant makes a lot of money. Only a certain restaurants make a lot of money. So there's a lot of Airbnbs that make a lot of money, and you comp them and you're like, yeah, this person is bringing from a 4-bedroom house in Old Town Scottsdale $160,000 a year. But that is maybe top 2%, 3% of the Airbnb, and the bottom 3% is, believe me, 10,000, 5,000. It is going broke. It's just like the restaurant business, that the bottom portion is going broke. The bottom portion in Airbnb is always going broke. What this Corona is going to do is going to make that bottom portion bigger. So if you were having a tough time making it before, and the margins didn't look that great to you before, it's going to just look a little bit worse to you. When I went to flipping houses, I wasn't the best flipper, but there was poor times over there that if you bought correct, you could make flipping work. I recognized I wasn't the best flippers. When the margins changed, I had to get out of flipping business. I went to rent and hold, and becoming a realtor more and working with people instead of flipping houses. Now, this is the same thing. The margins just changed. The Corona has changed the margins completely.
Yeah, and so the Corona's changed the margin. So if you were doing really well, it affected you. You're not doing as well. But if you were like doing already struggling, it's like almost like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Correct.
Now, you know a lot of people that also are owning either they're builders, developers, and they're building, or they're investors like you, where they own property. What is the word on the streets as far as like what a lot of your fellow investor firms are doing?
So I talk to a lot of my past peer civil engineers who are still in that development, in that commercial development world, residential development. They do thousands of houses at once. They don't see any slowdown of residential in Arizona. I was talking to a buddy of mine. He said he got a job the day, like the week of craziness of he was doing a commercial shopping center, like just a couple supermarket kind of thing. My understanding is the hotel stuff has been affected quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I talked to a friend who does big lending, and they said they basically rejected all their hotel deals. They're not going to lend to any of the hotels. So those been affected. Restaurants been affected. But as far as development and construction, they're saying they're all blow and go. They're working really hard. They're not stopping at all, which is a great sign. This was not a sign in 2008-9. Another friend I talked to got a job with City of Mesa. They were doing some development in Mesa. It's either Mesa or Chandler. A very cool thing that city did. They said, hey, the streets are all closed. We need to update all these utilities on these streets. The streets are all empty. Let us close this lane and update all this stuff. So they got this big job, and they're updating all the city utilities. So a lot of cool stuff happening out there. There's a lot of jobs going out there, and commercial, residential, and development is not slowing down. It's going into higher gear, which tells me after this slowdown of like people are afraid, right? Craziness is happening. People have lost unemployment. So the transaction rate is going to be slow. I'm not sure if real estate is going to hit hard from this. Like .com bubble happened and real estate didn't hit hard from it. In fact, interest rates went lower and real estate caught on fire 2-3 years after the .com bubble. So my thought is this is long-term going to be very positive, and long-term, not too long, 2-3 years, very positive for a real estate. And short-term, it's just going to freeze the market a little. A lot of people who are going to make a deal are just going to be like, and Jen, you work real estate. It's hard to buy a house. You $1 million house, even harder in these terms. But if you can buy, I recommend buying now, because I think in the next 2-3 years it's going to be better.
Yeah, I know we were talking about the sentiment of developers and builders, because the sentiment of consumers doesn't align with developers and builders. They seem to be ahead of the game because they're looking at statistics that the consumer doesn't have. And in
Right.
06 is when you said, you were talking to developers and they're scaling back, but prices didn't go into effect until 08. That's when prices went down. But 2 years before, the writing was on the wall that it's not looking good.
I would say the developers, like, you remember that it was a day in 2007 that the markets really crashed. The one day that thing felt different. I remember that date. But
Well, see, in 07 was like, I feel like 07 was the year that, like, you threw up a ball and, like, waiting for it to come down, but you didn't know, because the prices didn't go down, but the sales weren't happening. It was just dead.
Yeah.
But in 08 is when banks started to take the homes back, where we started to see and the sales were happening. That's why the sales started happening in 08, when the banks took the homes back and the short sales started to happen. And that's when the prices started to just crash, now that the sales were happening. And I was too new into real estate to really understand what was going on, because we were developing and building back then too. And we owned multifamily, and we had about 15 residential properties as well as developing. But had I been with the knowledge that I have now, I could have seen the signs happening in early 05. 2005 is officially when the recession started to happen. And we had been it was a completely real estate specific and lending issue. And Arizona was extremely hit hard because we had overbuilt, and we were an area that was targeted from a lot of investors overnight. They were able to get these loans with no money down or 5% down. And it was a lot of false demand, not real demand, because people weren't living in those houses. There was like 16,000 vacant houses in 08, where today we don't have that issue. We've been underbuilding for years, and we have more people here than the amount of homes we have. It's just, are they moving here? If they're from Minnesota and they're making a move, no, they might be on pause right now. Or if they're looking to upsize or downsize, it's like, we're on pause. But it's all real demand. It's not, hey, I'm an investor, I want to buy 20 homes. It's, I want to live in this house. I want to buy this as a second home. I want to upsize or downsize.
100% true. More equity in real estate today than before. And if people don't know where to put their money, I think what we're going to see, to your point, is investors are going to be the first one to start doing transaction again, because home buyers are going to be a little bit scared and they're not used to, and there's more equity. And if investors are not sure about all the other portions of the market that is getting hit by this, and there's so much equity in real estate and it's a tangible product, they're going to put more money into it. So, and that's exactly what happened in 2000 with uncertainties on .com. Investors had a lot of money, didn't know where to put money, so they started overdeveloping.
Yeah, I know when we were talking about like what we can compare it to, it's not 2008, it would be more 2001, like after the .com and then shortly after 9/11 and the stock market crashed and people were scared to fly, which some of that's, very similar to what's going on right now. But then after that, the real estate values across the nation went up every year, up until the real estate crash of 2008.
Absolutely. And the cause of that, of course, is every lending became easier. All the investment money, instead of from .com, came and went to real estate. And all those things, I don't see a reason for all those things to not re-happen again. If real estate is as solid, and it is solid, it has a lot of equity in it. And there is Porsche there, like that multi-complex. I own them. I think they were a bubble. I wish they weren't. But there are portions that might come down and up. But that residential, that thing that everyone needs, I think, is in solid ground, and it's gonna hopefully it would catch on fire, but not too hot.
I love that we've identified an opportunity though, like, and you've identified it for me, but I'm really interested in the multifamily market,
Absolutely.
getting back in there. Because I don't
Uh,
currently own one, and but you and I we think that like commercial and multifamily is going to be affected far more than residential, right?
Absolutely. It's going to be hard to carry anything residential. You live in it, it carries based on your paycheck. And from what I see, the white collar jobs are not being as affected as much as the service industry jobs are being affected. And those, because of that, the people who are even living in those are not being affected that much. If you remember when the crash happened last time, we saw so many houses in PV go on foreclosure. We're not going to see that. We're not going to even see houses from PV and Arcadia come in the market, in my opinion, for a little while.
Yeah, they have equity, and that's most
Absolutely.
homeowners. Over 90% of homeowners have equity in their house. The big reason why we had that crash that we had is the lack of equity. If people had equity, they could sell. They don't have to sell for a discount. It's not a distress sale. They have to go to the bank in 8 months negotiating a short sale, which the people that are going to hang on for 8 months are probably only going to be people that are getting a really good deal. So yeah, it's definitely again different, but so right now I'm interested in like multifamily and commercial. So a little bit of selfishness here, but I'm sure a lot of our viewers that are watching are probably thinking to themselves like, okay, I want to be an investor. Where are the opportunities? Like obviously we never know when the market officially hits the bottom. Like no one rings a bell like ding ding ding, we're officially at bottom, time to buy. But like,
Yeah.
what would you recommend, like for strategy? Like, what do we watch? Like, what areas to identify?
So, what? Great question, by the way. How I look at it on the investment, there's you got to understand why the market prices adjust a little. So if the rents go up really, like the rents has been going up and up crazy, this is going to obviously stop if people can't afford, if that bottom renter. So if you saw the rents going up and what people are renting is not changing in price, it's going to adjust. So that's what was happening with that multi-complex. When I was investing in it, it was really hard to rent it because, or it had just become easier, and Airbnb had just became legal in Scottsdale. So it went from an income of $600 to me not being able to pull out $1,600 out of it. So when that portion income difference happened, the value jumps up. Now, the reason I think it would crash is opposite now has happened. So I think the prices would carry high for a little while. Then at some point, because the income is going to be lower and lower and lower, it's going to cause a crash. What the correct price is in my head is go back and see what the rents. So if the rents stabilize at $900, I can do the math how much the fourplex should stabilize in value. The engineering, you know.
I know, and it was. I was talking to you about my daughter. She had an adorable little one bedroom. It was like actually two bedrooms. They were both tiny little rooms and one bath, and a very small living room. I think it was about 700 square feet. Her rents went from $1,400 a month to $1,600 a month, which is to me seems really high. I mean, it was a cute complex, nice neighborhood, but I think that maybe rent should have been more like 12 or 1,300. But say if I did that, like not 1,600, but 1,300, and you could just base those numbers, do the math, and then the return you want, and that's pretty much the price that would be a good price to buy it at once they come down.
Correct.
Okay.
Pretty much exactly what you say. I don't think so much on what return. I think about what property I like and if I can carry it. I don't, in my head, I never think about it. So I fall in love with the property. I think this is a property that is going to do great in my portfolio. It's something that is special and other people don't see is special. And usually it's next to a giant park, or it's the Templex. It's in a gorgeous residential neighborhood in Arcadia by Arizona Country Club. So every house in that is $1.5 million. This was the horse racing place over there, and this is a place that jockeys used to stay. So to me, it wasn't like how much return I can get. To me, it was like the market is blind to this property, and this property is special because of these houses and because of one of a kind. And as year goes by, market will get smarter and see what I'm seeing. Now, I might be incorrect, but that's my mindset on buying the property.
So it's really not just like looking at the numbers, but it's also then identifying properties that will be good. It's like Park Place on Monopoly. It's like that's a good property to always have, no matter where the returns are, because we know the returns are going to just get better. It's not going to be like just buying a property that's maybe not as a good of a neighborhood. Maybe the returns are there, you got them at the good price, but it's not special enough to get to see the returns or the appreciation that the special ones do. There's a lot of words.
Correct. Special ones will have a special return in the future, I would say.
Okay. I know we were talking about land, and like the Airbnb you were at now that you own, it's like land is land is obviously like where real estate values lie. And if you have a home on an acre, that's special, because all the homes are building now, unless it's custom, are on smaller lots, and you're in a prime location. So that's what's special about that. So even, if like your returns go down, that property, as we continue to build on the outskirts, just gets more and more valuable.
And to your point, right now, what I like to carry, if I can carry it better, I would like it, is bigger lots. They're hard to carry because you have a lot of dirt. There's the houses on them, unless you pay top dollar, are old. I like them in that Cheyenne Scottsdale area, which this one is at. I recommend it to anyone who can buy these properties. We are in the center of town, like Cheyenne Scottsdale. You can't get more center. And if you can't imagine an acre lot in New York, LA, or other cities, we are going to be there just 20, 30 years from now, maybe 50, 60 years from now. And you won't be able to imagine an acre lot 50 years from now in downtown, in Cheyenne, Scottsdale.
Which will be downtown.
Yeah, we should be 100% downtown. And as the valley grows, that center becomes so much more gold, as I like, of a property, and you're gonna have an acre on gold. And at some point, the city is gonna allow you to rezone some of those. There's gonna be other stuff going on, which other cities did. This is not something in Scottsdale would be unique to Scottsdale. There used to be acre lots in Manhattan. It just changed.
That's crazy to think that. Yeah, and so like and I know that, so the acre is special, the land is special, but even if somebody has, like we were talking about, like the 1 bedrooms, when we went to buy our first Airbnb in Flagstaff, and we had lunch, and I had like 4 pages of notes. You had talked about it more like it's in a hospitality business. This isn't just like put a property on the market. It's like that, it's creating that experience for the clients. And I was just, the information of what you shared, of just like, buy this comforter, buy this mattress. This is what our clients loved. And what you had pointed out, they weren't incredibly expensive. It's like, this is the best value that you can get. Just the book, the calls, and just everything that went into that client experience. So when they went to go to Amir's home, they knew that they were going to get the Amir experience. And a lot of people I have seen don't get that, because we've been getting clients that are like, we're here for the spring. We rented this home. It looked beautiful online. It's terrible. I hate it. There's no dishes. Like it's dirty. There's no sheets on one bed, and it just, obviously that experience wasn't there. So you can make a property unique in just the kind of experience that you have for the clients, right?
Absolutely. If you are someone who wants to service someone, be in the service industry and provide the Airbnb, and not look at the return on investment and doing many and going, it's a time consuming thing. It could be everyone has had that bed and breakfast experience that they really loved, even in childhood or adulthood. I see some non-business senior. I have an uncle, Kristen's uncle, senior citizens that have grabbed a condo, brought it to Airbnb. The staging and stuff looks great, but it's not our standards of professional staging. But they give such an experience to these guests that come over there that 100% I would love to be their guest. Everyone who comes loves it. And that one Airbnb model works for them. They don't have much, they have a lot of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
They give a lot of time to the guest. The guest is getting that from them. So if you have a lot of time and you don't know what to do with it, and you have a guest house and you want to do this and create those experiences and nerd out, as I like to say, we nerd out on this. There's a team of 3 of us. We each have portions that we are in charge of. My wife, my cousin. 4 of the Airbnbs by the way, are owned by my cousin. And we each try to make it better and better experience. Imagine having a restaurant where you're always trying to make the food and experience better. That's the lens you need to look at this. Mm-hmm. If you're looking at a lens that we're going to make a lot of money and we don't have time, and we're just going to put our money over here.
Okay.
The Airbnb is the stories I hear.
Yeah. And that's like what you had said. You said most people should not own an Airbnb.
100%. And I still say that. I don't think it's like most people should not own a restaurant, Jen. Restaurant business is a hard business, but we all cook. So we all have this.
Not all of us. I do make a good bowl of cereal. You put the milk in first, so.
Your restaurant, we each get a bowl of cereal.
And toast. I actually make really good peanut butter and jelly.
See, there's 2 items on a restaurant. Simple. Cereals. But we all think we can do that. We all have the necessary stuff to run an Airbnb. We all have it. So it can be simplified. But the devil is in the detail. So we all know what a clean sheet looks like. We all know what a comfortable bed is. The costs are a lot higher. You got to keep your property. The reason I like it is I can spend more on my property and keep it better all the time. I don't get a renter that moves out 2 hours later, and then I noticed there was a water damage last 4 months that the guy was there and he didn't tell us anything about it. So I don't get that anymore. We spend so much money on our property. So this is, to us, the return, it wasn't about the return, is about making our property better and better. And I don't see it as an amazing return. I've never have. I see it as it's good, but rental has always been good too.
But it's so it's good. It might not be where you're putting up Amir towers, from the returns on it, but it's stable, right? About a half, I would say.
Long-term rental is a lot more stable, I would say, than Airbnb is. Airbnb is you. Another issue is, Jen, you're in a different marketplace. So a marketplace can be. I have heard from people that have a conversation, and someone wrote to Airbnb that this person was racist, or this person was what, or this person, Me Too movement. And people have left, were kicked out, or not allowed in Airbnb sphere for weeks or months at a time. So it's definitely a double-edged sword. I have heard horror story on the other end also, so I don't know if I could say. I would definitely say long-term rental is more stable. I don't like management. With Airbnb, you have to almost go to have. I like to take care of my properties myself. And our Airbnb, I had to build a management company, which my cousin, have him buy Airbnbs with me, and have my wife and him and I manage it together. I do all the material shopping, all the property improvement, all those stuff. My cousin does all the transaction with guests. My wife does all the design, keeps us organized, on task, makes everything happen.
That's awesome. But okay, so I've owned I have 2 Airbnbs right now. And now the corona hit, I'm newer into the game. I've already been a little frustrated that I haven't been able to rent it out as much as I thought I was going to be the last 2 years. But now I have like nothing going on, and I'm really scared. It's crunching me and stressing me out financially. What would be the advice that you would give me? And I want to invest, right? Like, so I still want a return on my investment. And I go to you, Amir, what should I do?
Well, I would see what federal funding they can get on money lost, and then I would try to carry. If you weren't doing so well last 2 years, I would just say turn it into a long-term rental. Like I said, I measure my wealth in real estate, so I don't like to sell stuff, but I like to change stuff for another property. Sometimes a property market sees it as overvalued, and sometimes it sees it undervalued. So those multi-complexes were super undervalued. Now they're overvalued. So maybe sell and change it to something that you can carry it better in the long-term rental. So if your property is the one that doesn't carry well in a long-term rental, talk to you, Jen, and say, hey, Jen, what do you think that I can make the numbers work? Or how does the number work on this property on long-term rental?
Okay. Yeah. And I like that, like where you have more options. Like, so if you buy a house that's for an Airbnb but it also makes a good long-term rental and it's in a good area. So if I had to sell it, it's not going to be a scary thing. Then I have multiple exit strategies. And I know we had talked the other night, and you were thinking about how you have there's a lot of 1-bedrooms, and a lot of those 1-bedrooms with the rental rates coming up as high as they did, it made more sense financially for some of those people that own those properties as short-term 1-bedroom rentals to convert them back into long-term rentals because it got saturated in the Airbnb space. But because the rents had gone up, it made more sense financially for them, so that they did have that option to transfer a short-term to a long-term.
That is correct.
So then that, like, working just with a good real estate agent that knows their specific market, because North Scottsdale market's different than PV market, that's different than the Cactus Corridor, that's different than Old Town Scottsdale. And that's just one area that's pretty much real close together.
100%. Jen, the good real estate agent that knows their market, and you and I talk about this a lot. you have personal responsibility, especially when you're buying a property this big. Study that area, go there at night, see what happens. Like, just spend a little bit more time on yourself driving that area. Always personal. Before I got my real estate license, I was working with one agent, uh, and he was really good. He knew the area. But if I wanted to buy there, I would just go to open house after open house, and just because when the good one comes, you got to be ready. Your agent tells you this is a good one, but if you haven't done your study, you're not going to pull the trigger. So definitely go and stop at every single open house you see, I always say.
There's not a lot of open houses going on right now, but I would say it's a really good time to drive neighborhoods. You have time on your hands. You can't go anywhere other than like hiking trails or maybe a friend's backyard. You can't tell anybody. But if you were to be like, okay, you know what, maybe say my example of I own 2 rental Airbnb. Maybe this is a good time to go look at different neighborhoods that I can identify. And maybe I do sell those 2, but I take the money and 1031 it to a commercial property in, say, Arcadia or Biltmore or a luxury home in North Scottsdale. Whatever I'm going to do, this could be a good time to do my research.
Absolutely, go for I to your point of going to those neighborhood. Go for a walk in those neighborhood. You have a lot of time. You see a lot more when you bike or walk than you see with cars. Cars are it's almost like you're in your own room and watching TV in a car, versus when you're walking, you feel the neighborhood even better. So yeah, spend the time. The weather is so beautiful. It's such a shame you don't have the tourists to share it with, but
I know. It's like, don't ever, I remember 3 weeks ago, I was like so irritated with all the traffic on Scottsdale Road. I'm like, come back, traffic on Scottsdale Road.
Please.
Yeah. Well, so most people should not get into Airbnbs.
100%.
They don't have the temperature for it. So if they don't have a lot of time, and this isn't a passion project for them, maybe a long-term rental is better for them.
100%. Yes. Think of it as a passion. If you have this much time that you don't know what to do with, then you definitely should go to Airbnb or something that you passion of love. I really recommend it to Kristen's aunt and uncle. They are very happy with it. They have 1 2-bedroom. You should see if they have a website so we can put it out there. They're awesome people. By the way, they took out their 1-bedroom out of the market because of the Corona and the way they were running it, and they're older folks. Unlike us, that we are having the problem of financing, they're just like, oh, it just doesn't make sense for us to run it. We don't want to spend the time now running it because of this virus. So if you're that person, it's a great business for you. Or and of course, there's other people that are making it work. So I don't want to talk in absolute concrete.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who is actually, I know he got me into Airbnb, and he is an engineer. He runs a huge thing for Intel. He just moved. He's no longer with Intel, but he runs Airbnb. He does this, he does that. On the side, on weekends, he plays polo. So you could be that person, but if you're that person, most of us are not.
Well, when I opened up my Airbnb, it wasn't just for for here in Phoenix. It's beautiful right now, but what happens in July and August, and it's hot. And Prescott and Flag, and I mean, those were the areas that I identified that I liked, but I also know that White Mountains and Sholos is a really great area. It's more affordability there. But we had our Airbnb, and it was a passion project for me, but we would go up there, and when renters weren't there and it's in the summer, we just could go take our whole family up there. And it's kind of nice to have that flexibility that I have a place for my family to go to. So it's not just a liability for me. It's kind of like asset and a liability. But when when we didn't want to stay there, or if we did want to stay there, we could have the rentals offset the offset. And I think it's a good place for people to invest if they're okay with, like, that you might have whole months that you pay the lease yourself if you're going to stay in, or the mortgage yourself. But to be able to get up there, have our family, have income still coming in, it was just a really good hybrid of a property for us.
I have always said, don't do that to people. My logic has always been like, get a property that is close to you. If you get a manager, I don't like management. So if you don't get a manager, it's going to cause you at least once or twice a year to drive to Flagstaff or emergency, or find someone, or hassle that would have not happened if the property was next door to you. And my thought is, have the property next door to you. You would buy it smarter because you would have your investment hat on, not, oh, I'm going to keep my family in this property with me, because that property has to be a hybrid, like you say. And I always say hybrids don't do anything the best. They do everything half-assed. So the property, I say, buy the best over here, and the money that comes in, go with that family. Yeah, in flat. And 1 year go to Flagstaff, 1 year go to ski town, another ski town.
It's a write-off.
1 year ago, and write it off, because now you're checking out Airbnbs, and this is research and development. And whenever I go to Airbnb, I go crazy. There's not a single thing I don't check out, and I pick my Airbnb based on the one I want to check out. So
I'm like, oh man, I have to do another research and development in San Diego on the beach.
Life is right off research and development.
Oh, well, I know we're approaching the hour, and I really appreciate your time and knowledge. I've learned so much. I mean, I feel like I learn so much every time I talk to you. I'm like, I can't learn more, but I learned a lot more today. So thank you so much for your time.
It's always a pleasure, Jen.
Just any final thoughts you would like to leave the viewers, then feel free for shameless plugs. I did see that Kristen did post in the comments both the link to the property there, as well as the all of your properties that you have. And she also gave some really good tips in the comments on where to find some of the things like the mattresses. And you guys are a gold mine with information on that.
Thank you. No, I just want to wish everyone the best.
It's not as scary as it as everyone's making it out to say. Like the news, it's the apocalypse isn't happening right now.
My thought is, it's what we make it. So if we make it an opportunity to be kind to one another more, opportunity to appreciate one another more, let's make it about that. When you're out there in the world, because we all have to be out there in the world, just remember kindness. A buddy of mine, Mark Victor, if there's a plug ever needs, he's a great guy, and I would love to plug him anytime I can, because everyone should listen to Mark Victor.
Is he doing a podcast, or?
He's Attorneys for Freedom. He does a lot of talks. He's everywhere. He should have a podcast of his own. But he just says the answer, Amir, is always kindness. So he tells me these diseases is because we are not kind to animals. And it's
Yeah.
jump because of lack of kindness. So in these times, I think all we can do is be as kind as humanly possible. If somebody snaps at you today, tomorrow, when you're out there, just give them 100% benefit of doubt. Remember what's going on and be just as kind as you can to everything and everyone, especially now.
I love that. And I got these little cards, and you like open them up and there's like a little personalized message in there. I got nothing to do today but smile, but there's always different little quotes. But I've been giving them out when I get my Starbucks or takeout or grocery store, just to spread, a little cheer. I think it's a time where, yeah, a lot of people have a lot of emotions going on. And if we can be the calm within the storm and know that there's other people's stories, other people are experiencing a different, they're going to have a different story of what they're going through. So if they're a nurse or they're a doctor or they just got laid off or they just lost somebody, those are the kind of things that I'm much more aware of, and to not take everything personally. Like, take a step back and what would Amir do?
Awesome. What would Jen do?
Well, thank you so much. It was awesome. And I always love picking your brain. You're just a wealth of information.
It was fantastic. Great talking to you, Jen.
And I love that we said coffee with Jen, but we're both drinking tea.
Cheers to that.
Here's a cheers to that. Cheers to Facebook, and go enjoy this beautiful sunshine. The UV rays are extremely healthy for our immune systems.
Absolutely. I'm planning to play golf. So club distance away.
Awesome. All right. Bye, Amir. We'll catch you on the next one. And I'll see you guys soon.
Sounds good. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.